Francis, you all saw the cover. You're using a brush. This evening, we're going to show you right after that, we're going to get right into the class. I'll put information in the chat if there are some updates and other information that you need while we're going through the course. I'll give out reminders about the breaks and anything else that we have, and make some announcements toward the end about coming workshops and events. I'll try to prevent interrupting you all as much as I can, because I know I want you to have as much time as possible with Mr. Francis doing your great creations. So let's take a look at the video and then get ready to start this class for tonight. We're so excited. When I get the chat going, don't forget to enter your name and your email address. I'm also going to put a link in there to the survey for tonight's class, but you don't have to complete it until the class ends or thereafter. So many thanks to you, and make sure you let all of your friends know that these courses are free and open to the public, and we're going to be doing something new tonight. In addition to running the class on Zoom, we're also going to be on Facebook Live. So if they don't have time to join us on Zoom, tell them to go to Art Space Shreveport on Facebook, and they can access the course from there. So we're going to get started right now.
Well, hello again, everybody. It's so good to see y'all. I see a few new faces. Does everyone have art supplies? That's the question. Does everybody have canvases and paints so we can begin? Kind of, sort of. Well, I'll briefly go over what we did last week. So last week, we started on a painting, and we were doing this lovely young lady. Can you see, hold on, screen is locked. So we did a painting of this lovely young lady, and having some technical difficulties. Hold on a second, let me fix this up for you. Here we go. I think that fixed it right up. Okay, so we started on this painting last week. And if you had a printout, you're gonna print it out, darken the back, and then trace it on the canvas, or you just draw it directly on the canvas. And it's an 8x10 canvas. So does everybody have a canvas? I see a couple of new people, Sharon and Arnetta. I think that's your name. How you guys doing? So now, do you have either this image or this image? I mean, do you have this image or the image on the side of the screen? Okay. And can you draw it on the canvas, or can you transfer it over? Do you understand how to transfer the image over? Okay. So then we can begin painting. We're just gonna pick up from where we left off. So where we left off is we just started this thing. What we're gonna do now is you're just gonna pick up and we're gonna continue painting it. So if everyone's ready, I want you to get your brushes ready, and we're gonna start painting. We're just gonna jump right into it. So I always like to start with the darkest color first. I feel like by putting the darkest color in first, it creates form. You can easily see a form when you add all the dark colors first. So we're gonna start off with the darkest colors. And also, I'm left-handed. Because I'm left-handed, I always start on the right-hand side. I started this way, I'd end up just dragging paint everywhere. So I start here. And because the paint dries really fast, I'm able to have my hands on the canvas. That's the thing I love about acrylic paint. And when you begin, make sure your hand is rested and that your elbow is also rested, that you have it nice and firm. So you're able to control your breath.
Forgot it was tagged to mine.
We're just figuring it out ourselves.
Yeah,
We're gonna start off with the number 5. and we're going to use our darkest color. You know what? Let me flash the colors on the screen for you again. So here are our colors. These are the colors that we're going to be using. And I didn't add titanium white to the palette because we're not really going to use it that much, and it might dry out if we put it on there too quick. But first color is 1 part Mars Black and 1 part Burnt Umber. The second color is 1 part Burnt Umber and 1 part Burnt Sienna. Third color is 1 part Burnt Sienna and 1 part Naples Yellow. Our fourth color is 1 part Burnt Sienna, 1 part Naples Yellow, and 1 part Titanium. Now, if you don't have Naples Yellow, I know that somebody didn't have Naples Yellow, just add 2 parts Titanium White. The goal is to have number 4, color number 4, it has to be lighter than color number 3. So it's almost like the colors on a value scale, going from darkest to lightest. And by having like an absolute dark and an absolute white, we know that we're going to create depth inside the painting. And because you have depth, it makes the thing look sort of three-dimensional. That's one of the ways I make paintings look very three-dimensional. Or as the kids say, it looks HD. So your paintings look HD. It's because I always make sure to add tons of depth to the painting. All right, so let's get back to our canvas. Okay. So we're going to start off with color number 1. And we're using the number 5 round brush. Or actually, I'm using a number 6 round brush. That's okay. And we're going to start off by painting the hair. And I want you guys to set up your canvas and set up your station in a way that's comfortable, but do it the same way every single time. You want it to almost become second nature when you're painting. So we're going to start off by painting the hair. And you want to paint around the edges first and fill in the space afterwards. Now on this layer, you're going to begin to refine things. The first layer could have been kind of sloppy, and that doesn't really matter. As you build up the layers, the painting gets more and more refined. So I'm being careful to paint in the hairline, right? And I'm painting with the tip of the brush. And it's like I said last week, the tip of the brush doesn't have very much paint, but you use it for fine details. And you're able to have a lot more control over the tip of the brush. All right, so I dip my brush in water, I add it to the paint, and I'm gonna fill in the areas. And when I'm filling in the areas, I'm making sure to press the brush down. Most of the paint is in the middle of the bristles. So you're gonna make sure you're gonna press your brush down, you're gonna get that color in. And you're gonna notice this thing about acrylic paint. Colors tend to dry dark. So whatever it looks like on your palette, you can count on it being about a step darker when it dries than when it looks on your palette. So when you're mixing your color, you want to make sure to mix them just a bit lighter. And we're going to go in and paint the rest of the hair. And this layer should go down easier than the first layer. And it goes down easier because you have already a layer of paint. That first layer of paint has to absorb into the fibers of the fabric. And it makes it a bit harder to paint. So you're gonna go in, you're gonna paint along the other side of the hair. And it's like I said before, you're using the very tip of the brush to go around the hairline. because you have more control that way. Here we go. And you want to be gentle on your brushes too. I'm not very gentle on my brushes all the time. And what I mean by that is I don't want you to stab the canvas with your brush. You know, you're using very smooth brush strokes. And as far as the paint goes, it should be able to stretch across your canvas. If it's not stretching, add a bit more water to your paint. And make sure you wet your brush before you touch the canvas with it. It allows the paint to drag better. All right, we're done with the hair. Now we're going to switch to the number 2 round brush. And we're going to start painting in the smaller areas. And the idea here is to always pick the right tool for the job. So if you're painting larger areas, of course you're going to use a larger brush. And when you're painting smaller areas, you're going to use a smaller brush. And we're focusing on color. We're focusing on shape. It's a good idea to not name anything on the canvas, because we're not really painting an eyebrow. We're actually painting a curved shape. So in your mind, that's how I want you to think about it. The goal is to not be thinking in words, period. You should be thinking in images. You should be thinking about the shape. That's when you really get your mind inside the artist state. When you're in that artist state, you're thinking about shapes, lines, you're thinking about color, you're thinking about curves. You see all the individual pieces, but you also understand how each piece fits together. And if you're not in the artist state and you're trying to do artwork, it becomes difficult because the information becomes overwhelming to your brain. It's so much to do and there's so much to see. Alrighty, so we pretty much painted the eyebrow with the point of the brush. And we're gonna move over to the left eyebrow. And we're gonna do the same thing. Painting gets rather repetitive sometimes, in the early stages anyway. But the goal here is to build up color and to understand how to get paint on the canvas and to understand how to use the brush. You want to be sure not to use the brush like a pen. And trying to find the most comfortable way to hold the brush. Now go ahead and we're gonna paint the right eye. Oh, matter of fact, let's do this ear. This area right inside the ear. And we're using one color at a time. We're not gonna jump around a lot, it's just one color at a time. I find that by using one color at a time and going left to right, I don't get caught in any one area. What I used to do was paint my favorite thing, you know? I would spend all my time painting the eye, but the painting would end up looking incomplete because I would get tired of painting and there was all this other stuff left to do and I wouldn't do it. Like ears aren't my favorite thing to paint. But so long as I go from left to right, top to bottom, everything gets done. All the parts of the canvas get touched. All right. And I'm using the very tip of the brush to straighten this line out. And I'm being a bit more careful. Being a bit more careful this time. Because we are refining everything. We're making everything look a bit more neat and clean. And I also want you guys to understand that some of the things that I'm saying to you are my rules. You know, it's the way I like to paint things. If you've been looking around at the art world, you might understand that there are no real paint rules. There's no real art guidebook that says this has to be like this or that has to be like that. I don't want to crush your creativity, your creative mind. I'm sure you have all these ideas bubbling inside of you, you know? And if you do it how you would desire to do it. All right. I'm still painting with the very point of the brush. And we're going around the eye. And make sure we get everything. Oof. I let this paint sit open too long, so it's giving me some clumps. That's fine, I could just paint right through them. And the thing about acrylic paint is it's self-leveling, so it's not going to be a big deal that some of the paint is a little bit thicker than other parts of the paint. And now we're going to do the ear. I'm going to move down to the nose right afterwards. All right. And we're painting the nostrils. And I'm squeezing all of the paint out of the brush. I hope you can see that. I'm flattening the brush and I'm filling up the space. I'm trying to do it with one brush stroke. You want to really focus in on the brush strokes. Now we're going to paint the shadow underneath the neck. Here we go. Trying to squeeze all the paint out the brush, the bristles. And we're finished with this shape. I'm going to go right to the next area. I'm going to switch brushes now. And we're going to get right to the shirt. We go in and we're going to fill up this space. We're going to go right along the edge. So for the shirt, because this is a large area, I loaded the brush up with paint. So let me show you this. I load the brush up with paint and then I wipe it off. But I wipe off one side. The other side, wipe off one side. Now one side is pretty flat. The other side is loaded with paint. I do that because I'm able to get better stretch out of it. And when paint starts to run out on one side, I'll flip the brush over and use the other side. You want to go ahead and get that line in. All right. And we're almost finished with color number 1. right, so we paint the bottom left side. And we paint along the edge, of course. Now we fill in the space. It's a really good idea to have a hair dryer, but canvas is pretty much dry. I know this area is pretty wet, but the rest of it is pretty much dry. So, and you have to watch out to see that where you're painting at isn't too humid. Because if it's really humid, it takes a while for your paint to dry properly. All right, so we're going to switch to color number 2. We're going to load the brush up again. So I'll flatten it on one side, and I'll flatten it on the next side. Because we don't want too much paint on the brush. We're just rolling the bristles around till it forms a point. When it forms a point, we're ready. I'm going to go in and paint right along the left side of the face. And this color doesn't cover as good as color number 1. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but the way they formulate this paint, burnt umber doesn't cover as good as Mars Black. And all that means is you're going to have to add more layers of this dark color than you will. You have to add more layers of color number 2 than you would color number 1. It's pretty much, you look at color number 1, we don't really have to do anything to it. We're already done. But because this color is so thin, we're going to have to add more layers. Now, the difference between professional quality paints and student grade paints is the amount of pigment that's inside of the paint. So we're using Liquitex, which is a student grade paint, and it doesn't have a lot of pigment inside of it. I mean, it's good, it looks good, but if we were to use a brand like, say, Golden Paint, it would cover better. And what that means is, you know, spend less time. You'd spend less time adding layers. And that's the real major difference between a student grade paint and a professional grade paint. All right, we're switching brushes. We're moving to the smaller brush. And we're still using color number 2. We're gonna paint the eyes. All right, so we go in. And because I started over here for some reason, I said not to do, we're gonna paint in the eye, and we're squeezing all of the paint out of these bristles. We're making sure it covers properly. And we're gonna do the same thing for the left eye. I'm gonna squeeze all of that paint out the bristles. And with each layer, the painting gets more and more complete. So this painting should take about 4 layers, about 4 layers of paint. So we go in and we paint underneath the nose. And we're being a little more careful than we were the first time. Just a little bit more. Because we refine it a little bit on each layer. And we go right around the nose. And we're painting just with the tip of the brush. All right. I'll I'll wipe my brush off, add a little water to the brush. It's getting a little bit stiff. And I'm gonna paint the upper lip. And I'm trying to get it all with one brush stroke. So I start off with the point, then I squeeze the bristles and go right along the edge of the lips. Trying to get as much work done with each brush stroke as possible. And it becomes very difficult to paint and talk at the same time, you know. I believe painting is a right brain function. And right brain, the things that the right brain focus on are visuals, you know. It focuses on global skills. It's not very analytical. It sees everything at once. And it's nonverbal. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint underneath the neck. And I believe I skipped over something. I didn't do the ears. We're gonna paint in the ears. And if you're ahead of me, just go ahead of me, you know. You can jump ahead, but we're gonna paint the ear in. Alrighty, we're gonna do the same for this ear. And we got that. And every once in a while, I want you to take a second, just pull back and just look at it. And just look at it. Look at what you did and kind of see what you need to do. All right, we're gonna switch colors again. We're gonna use color number 3, and we're going to the number 5 round brush. If you don't have a number 5 round brush, you get a number 6 or a number 4. Just something close to this size. You basically need a very small brush and a medium-sized brush, and also a larger flat brush. Okay, so we're gonna go in and we're gonna paint along the side of the face. We're gonna start off with the ear. And we're painting right along the edges. And we're using the very tip of the brush. And this color seems to cover very well. Covers fine. Yes, all colors don't cover the same. And they don't all blend the same. And it's gonna take some getting used to. All right, we're gonna go right along the forehead. And you wanna use just long, easy brush strokes. The paint should be gliding across the canvas. That's why we added water, and that's why we wet the brush before we dip it into the paint. So it's just sliding right across the canvas. And we're filling up all this space with all the paint that's inside of the body of the bristles. Go right along the forehead. There we go. Let's clean this up. All right, so we move right over to the right eye. We're painting with the tip. And we go right along the edges and we fill in all the space with each brush stroke. We do the same for underneath the eye. All right, we move over to the next eye. Go right along the eyelid, right into the corner of the eye. All right, we're gonna switch brushes again. Before we switch brushes, we clean off the number 5 round. Very important to clean off your brushes. You can ruin some nice brushes by not cleaning them off properly. All right, so we dip our number 2 brush in water and we switch. And we're gonna paint the ear. So we go in and we clean up these edges as good as we can right now, for now. And we go fill up the space with one brush stroke. And we do the same for the earlobe. And we're going to use the very point to do on the outside edge of the ear. And I think we got it. And we're going to hold on to that brush and we're going to paint the nose next. Using the very tip of the brush, we go right along the edge of the nostril. But we're flattening it as we go down around the edges of the nostril. So the bristles begin to flatten. We're going to go right over the nostril, right to the left side of the nose. And this is the shadowy side of the face. We're going right along the edge of the nostril. And I think I said this last week, I'll say it again. When you're painting from your imagination, you almost have to create a world. And I created this painting from my imagination. And in this world, the light source was way up there on the top, on the right-hand side. And you can tell the light source was coming from that direction because the shadows are falling to the left and the bottom. In order to paint from the imagination, you have to draw off of a lot of painting experience or drawing experience. You have to know a lot about the face to be able to draw it or paint it without using any kind of reference material. I find it way more difficult to draw from the imagination than from a reference. All right, guys, in 2 minutes, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. How's that sound? About 2 minutes, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. If you guys wanna keep working through, you can go ahead. But in about 2 minutes, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. All righty, we're going right along the cheek. And we switch to our next brush, number 5 round. We're gonna go right along the cheek. We go right along the chin. All righty. And one last area before we go to break. We're gonna go right underneath the neck. And here we go. Right underneath the neck. Guys, that's it. Break time. You guys can go ahead on break. All righty. That is it. But feel free to
I
keep
hope
going.
you all
Feel free.
have been enjoying this. I've been paying attention and it looks like it's going extremely well. Please enjoy the 5-minute break. I'm going to be showing an artist homecoming video in the meantime, and I'll hit replay. So if you haven't seen it before, you'll get a chance to see it. But in about 5 minutes, I'll call everyone back to the class. Enjoy the break.
No, any sound. Um, I don't hear any sound. I don't hear the sound. Oh, that's fine.
right, let's have everyone come back from break. We're ready to get started again. You only have a little over a half hour left for the class, so we want to make sure that you get as much time in with the speaker as you can. Thank you so much for staying with us. We know that you all are excited about what is happening in the class and about your creations. So, Mr. Francis, if you're ready, we're going to get started again.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All
Is
right.
everyone ready? Everybody ready? Because we're gonna jump right back in, right where we
We
left
do
off.
have a question from the chat, Eric. It says
Sure.
that if you weren't in the class on Thursday and you just started tonight, how do you get a copy of the sketch that's being used for the class?
Okay, if you just want to look at it right now, you can go to homecoming_masterclass on Instagram. And I have pictures and I have a description of the things that we were doing. And also, if you can just leave your email, I can email you a copy. I'll just email you some information.
Okay, that email is from, I don't see where she put it in here, but I'll make sure she does. It's from arnettabradley@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat for you.
Okay, okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so we left off at color number 3. And go ahead and paint the face again. This side of the brush is flat. The other side is filled up with food. So we're just gonna go ahead and be a little bit more careful. We're gonna line everything up. We're gonna make it as clean as we possibly can. I'm gonna go through and paint the face. And it's a bit easier to paint this because we're painting in a large area. And in general, it's easier to paint bigger. But the reason why we're doing a small painting right now is because I really want you guys to learn some brush control, how to control your brush, how to make these very little moves with your brush, you know. So you can learn control, because control is big. It's a really big thing. One of the things we didn't do, but you should do, is you gotta have as much dexterity with a paintbrush, the same dexterity with a paintbrush that you have with a pen or a pencil. When you have that much control over a paintbrush, you can pretty much paint anything. Well, you can't paint anything. It just becomes more simple to you, you know? Because a lot of times you're unfamiliar with holding a brush and it just feels kind of weird when you're first starting off. But one of the exercises I used to do is I would write my name with the brush before I start to paint. You can do that anytime. You get yourself a sheet of typing paper, and right before you start to paint, just write your name a few times. It'll get you way more comfortable, and it kind of puts your mind, you get in state, you know? You're preparing yourself to paint, and that's a good way to prepare yourself to paint. So we go ahead and we paint around the eyes, right along the cheek. And you might have noticed in my painting that I didn't paint around the highlights in the eyes or the lips. And I didn't paint in the eyelashes, because it's much easier to add those things in later than it is to spend time just painting around all those little shapes. It's easier just to paint through, you know? You can go in and add white later. Same thing goes for the eyelids. I'm gonna come back in later and I'm gonna add the darker color. But for now, you know, there's some indications that they're there. And I won't completely paint over the color that I added before. All right, we're going right around the chin. And we just have the upper lip left. And I don't know how your painting looks right now, but it should be covering really nicely right about now. For color number 3. Oh, this is color number 4. I'm sorry. We're using color number 4. The lighter colors tend to cover better than the darker colors, except of course Mars Black. Mars Black covers really well. It's a really good color. And it's not the same with every single brand of paint. Different paints cover different, and they use different formulas. Oh, I think we froze up a little bit. Let's fix that technical difficulty. Okay, for some reason we're frozen up. Let's see if we can fix this right quick. There we go. Here we go. Let's hit OK. And my screen will go blank for just a second, y'all. Give me just a second so I correct this difficulty. It's going to go blank for just a minute. And
While Eric is fixing his
screen,
I want to talk to you about a couple of other sessions that we have. On tomorrow, we have a session with Miss Brenda Wimberly called What is Music? If you're interested in looking at one of the performing arts courses. And on next week, we're going to have some very exciting master classes presented as well. I don't want to skip Thursday. Thursday, we have a history of Southern University that's being presented. We also have some more sessions with Eric Francis, your painting. So we want to make sure you tune in and zoom in for those. On next week, we have the artist Kababi Bayak, who is going to be doing a 3-hour master class on the journey to becoming a professional artist. That master class will be part of the visual arts sessions on Monday, September 21st. In the performing arts, we'll have a master class presented Intro to the Life of a Professional Jazz Musician. So I see that we are now back live with Mr. Francis. I'm going to press mute on my system. Please continue to enjoy the remainder of the class.
thank you so much. All right, thanks for your patience, everybody. Technology, gotta love it, gotta love it, gotta love it. All right, so we're gonna go in and we're gonna paint the ear. And we switch brushes to our smaller brush. This is a number 2 round brush. We're gonna paint right around the eye. And the reason why I use these round brushes, because they're nice to paint all these angles and all these curves that we're gonna have to do. And you're always choosing the right brush for the right job. I could easily paint everything with this tiny little brush, but it just takes so much more time. But then, like, when you're painting, it's in your hand, you just want to use it the whole time, you know? You have to kind of remind yourself to switch brushes. All right, we're painting right above the right eye, and we're going around the edges and we're making sure that we got everything. Because I see a few little white spots, and we don't want to leave any white spots anywhere. You want flat, solid color. All right, we switch brushes. Now we're using the number 6 round brush. And we paint right underneath the neck. All right, paint right through the neck and right along the shirt. And black got away from me a little bit right here, but I paint right over it. Just cover it right up. It's not a big deal. Mistakes are not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. But it's tough to handle mistakes, you know? But so long as you learn something, you're not losing, you know? You can make a mistake, but just make sure you learn. And you learn best from making mistakes anyway. But making mistakes, it's tough. It's tough. But then you have to go back and review what you did wrong. That's really tough. But it's so helpful. And it'll help you to grow so much faster if you're able to do that. If you're able to just kind of separate yourself from what you're doing and to just look at it and kind of break it down and go, okay, next time I won't do this, or next time I should do this more. Okay, now we switch brushes. We're going to paint the background, and we're going to fill the brush up with color number 4, and I load up both sides of the brush. I wipe it off just a little bit. We're going to go in, we're going to paint right along the edge of the hair. We're using the 3/4 flat brush. I'm going right along the edge of the hair. All right. Remember, the goal of this is for control. It's learning how to get the paint on the canvas. It's learning how to use the brush. So I want you to be very mindful of your brush strokes. And I want you to try different things. All right, I'm gonna flip the canvas around. And I also want you to be loose. Be as loose as you possibly can. And you're painting portraits, they're kind of tight. You kind of want to get the nose right. You want to get the eyes right. You want to get everything right. But I want you to be a little bit looser. And be very forgiving of yourself. You know, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't look perfect, if you think it didn't turn out right. I'll tell you the truth. I've never did one painting, not one, that turned out the way I thought it would. It's always so much better in my mind. Always. I'm not saying that I don't like my paintings. I'm just saying, in my imagination, these things are fantastic. They are super amazing. Alrighty, and we're gonna go right along the edge, painting with the brush completely flat. You can even turn the brush to the side and use just the tip so we can line it up. But you have to be sure to squeeze all of this paint out of the body of the bristles. Because remember, that's where all the paint is. I still have plenty of paint left on this brush. All right. And now we're gonna go in and do the last thing. And for me, the last thing is usually the ears, you know. Now let's start off with this here. We're gonna keep it this way. And we're gonna use the number 2 round brush and we're gonna paint in the ear. Now, just about this time, I would normally get a hair dryer and just dry the whole thing. But we're just gonna continue painting. So it's a good idea to have a hair dryer. It'll speed up the process for you. We're going in and painting inside of the ear. Okay. Is there a question? All right. So painting is looking so far so good. So far so good. All right. So take a look at your painting. You start to judge and kind of figure out what you want to do. In my painting, I don't know about yours, but in my painting, color number 1, it looks almost complete, or it is complete, you know? So I'm not gonna add any more color number 1. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna need a lot more of this color number 2. All right, so we're gonna go in with color number 2. And we're gonna use the number 5 round brush. And paint right along the side of that. Here we go. And this is a little bit tricky because the canvas is still a little bit wet, but we're just gonna march forward anyway. I'm just gonna keep readjusting the canvas now because it's a little bit wet. And as you can see, the color is becoming more solid. But at this point, you're gonna need a lot more control, or a little bit more control anyway. You're trying to keep the lines straight. So you're being mindful of the tip of the brush, or your eye represents the tip of the brush. You're being very careful. And here's a little trick that'll stop your hands from shaking if your hand is shaking. You want to make sure, again, your elbow and your hand is rested firmly on the canvas. And something else, this is a bit silly. I had a girlfriend laugh at me because I told her this. I was like, okay, sometimes I just hold my breath. I just take a deep breath in, and then I make a long line. So just take a deep breath in and paint the line that you have to paint. And you do it very consciously. I'm very, very conscious of what I'm doing right now. We're going to paint the lip. Being sure to use as much of the brush as possible while we're painting this lip. You could have actually went in with the number 2 round brush, but we could do it with this one also. And we're going to paint the eyes. We're going to hold on to this brush. And the reason why we're holding on to this brush right now is because the larger the brush, the more paint it's able to hold. And the more paint it's able to hold, the more it's able to cover. So we're going to cover these areas just right up, right now with this larger brush. Again, you can go in with the smaller brush. It's a good idea to be able to paint with a slightly larger brush than what you're comfortable with sometimes. And we paint in the left eye. It's looking good so far. I'm going to go in, I'm going to clean up this line. It's a little bit rough. I don't know if you can see it. And I'm going to use the number 2 round brush. It's a bit rough. Go in and we paint right along that line. Just right along the line. I hadn't filled these areas in before. And we're going to finish off by painting the ears. So I'm going to flip the canvas around so I don't have to rest my hand on the canvas. I'm resting it on the table. And we paint in the ear. All right, flip it back around and we're going to do the other ear. Now, for the most part, it's a good idea to let your painting dry before you move forward, because the painting just looks different when it's dry. It's going to be darker, and it's going to be darker first of all. And you're going to notice that you can see through the canvas, or you can see through the paint and see the canvas. The goal for this one is to get solid color. We want nice, solid color on the canvas with sharp lines, or as sharp as you can get them. Control is the key. Learning how to control this paintbrush is the key. And to gain control, try to write your name. I don't know if you visit galleries and museums, but you can see painters who write their name on the canvas like they do with a pen, or even better, like a calligrapher, you know? This is a really difficult thing to do. All right, let's touch it and see. It's pretty dry right now. I'm gonna go back in with color number 3, and we're gonna use the number 5 round brush. We're gonna paint the skin. Okay, so we're gonna start off on the right-hand side, of course. We're gonna go right around the ear. And we're gonna go right around the side of the face. One of the major differences between drawing and painting is, in drawing, you are very considerate of lines, and you're thinking about lines, and you're thinking about that sort of thing. With painting, you're thinking about areas of color. You're thinking about value. You're thinking about the basic shape of things. Now, if this was a drawing, you'd be line, 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 line. You're concerned about lines. With this, not so much. Matter of fact, when I was speaking with Kelly earlier, said she did a value scale. Like, that's perfect. That's exactly what you do when you're painting. You're thinking about value. You're thinking about the color, but you're thinking about the shape of the color. These are some of the things you should be thinking about as you're working on your work. Just shapes, colors. It's almost like a gigantic puzzle that you have to put together. All right, we paint the right eye. And we're really refining at this point, cleaning it up. We're getting closer to the finish line. And we go in and paint the right eye. Again, keep reiterating this point. Make sure you rest your hand somewhere. Rest your elbow. With your hand up in the air like this and your hand is up in the air, it becomes very shaky. All right, I'm gonna paint the nose. We're going around the nostril. And we're using the number 6 brush. And now we're refining and we're filling all of the space with color, making sure the canvas doesn't show through. All righty. Go right around. The paint should be gliding across the canvas really smoothly at this point because we built up paint. It becomes easier to paint with paint on the canvas. And it shouldn't be sticky, it should just be gliding right across. We're going right up the cheek, squeezing the bristles, making sure the edge of the brush just goes right along the line where the two colors meet. We do the same for the lip. We go right across the lip. I'm almost pressing these bristles down completely flat as I go across the center. I'm following the shape of the top of the lip. And with the tip of the brush, I go around the edge and we fill in that space. All right, I'm gonna do the ear now. I should switch brushes for the ear. Let's go to the bottom of the chin. While I have this brush, I'm gonna go through the bottom of the chin, or the side of the face to the bottom of the chin. Smudge it a little bit, just wipe it off with my finger. And we do the chin one more time. Now we do the bottom of the neck. We squeeze it out, flip the brush over, and just follow along that shape and create a really clean, straight line where the colors meet. Alrighty, we're done with that. I'm gonna switch brushes. We're gonna switch to our smaller brush and we're gonna paint the ear. And we're using color number 3. So we go into the ear. We're gonna clean this area up. And we are so close to finishing, so close. Or I'm so close. I wonder if you guys are close to finishing. I wonder. I'm going around the ear. And we go around this part of the ear. And we get the earlobe. And there we have it. Alrighty. There's something I didn't do, or I will do again. I'm gonna paint underneath the nose with color number 2. So we go in and we paint right underneath the nose. Color number 2 is a shadow. Colors number 3 and 4 are midtones. Shadows and midtones. All right. Clean my brush off. Oh, you know what, guys? It's about that time. Got about 4 minutes left for the class to be done with. About 4 minutes left. I want to open up for questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Or do we have any questions? Do we have any?
No questions?
Okay.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think as far as doing a live tutorial, I think you do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Eric, so of course, I missed the class last Thursday. So when you
Okay.
email me, would you email me the colors that we need and the brushes also, please?
Yes.
I'm
yes.
gonna be working on it during the week.
Okay. I'll send you some videos also. I have some videos.
Yes,
that I'd
thank
like
you.
to-
Okay.
Now, originally, this painting might have taken me about, I think, an hour to do, maybe hour and a half. No, just takes a little bit longer when you're trying to explain it. But I'm thinking you guys pretty much get the basic idea of what we're trying to do. I think.
Eric, there's a question from Kelly. She's asking everyone, do you ever paint vertically?
Paint vertically.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't say that I do. What do you mean vertically? Wait, before I answer, what does she mean by vertically?
Kelly, can you unmute yourself and explain what you mean by vertically? She said, as opposed to horizontally on the table.
Oh, yes. That's what I was thinking. Maybe it's something else. But yes, I prefer painting on an easel than I do painting flat. And the reason I do is because you see what the viewer is going to see, you know? When you're painting flat on a table like this, once you flip it up and in the light, it looks different, you know? You get a different idea of what the final outcome is going to be. But when I first started, I just enjoyed painting like this because it reminded me of drawing. So it was easier to get used to. But yeah, I prefer painting on an easel nowadays.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do we have any other questions?
For next class, we're Tuesday today. I've been locked up for 6 months. I can't remember what day we are. So for Thursday, we're still going to work on this particular design, I assume?
I'm thinking if everyone pretty much got the idea about what we're doing here, we could move on to something else. We could move forward to actually blending. So it'd be the first blending. So in your personal time, I would like you to go in and just finish this painting And next week, we're going to jump into blending, which is really difficult. It's difficult. I could say that. It's simple, but it's difficult. It takes a lot of practice, you know? So I would love for you guys to finish the rest of this at home. Well, you're probably at home now. Just finish the rest of this. And next week, we're going to start doing something else. Or not next week, on Thursday.
Okay, so are we, I know you sent me something by email. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to or because I didn't have
Yeah.
access. I think you post your links on Instagram and I don't have Instagram, so I didn't have access to that. So if you have anything else that is needed for any future sessions, I don't have Instagram.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start sending everything through email. I just need a copy of everybody's email. I'm sure
Okay.
I can, and I'm just going to start emailing the information out.
Okay. But you
We've
already
asked
have mine.
everyone to put their names and email addresses inside the chat box. So we do have the information for some in attendance there.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And I'll just send the information that way. I'll send it that way. And if you have any questions, just feel free to email me, you know, because I know some of you are going to start without, you know, watching the video of me being around. So just email me and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I think that's it.
All right.
If we don't have any more questions.
Well, thank you, everyone. Let's give it. I
Sorry,
don't
Sherry.
see any more in the chat. Yes. We'll make
Sorry,
sure
Sherry,
you get the
you were cutting out, and I don't know if it was just me or everyone else.
Okay, are you able to hear me now?
Intermittently.
Oh, wow. Okay, we have quite a number of sessions going in this one building. And so we're probably all tapping into the same bandwidth. And that could be part of the, okay. But we'll make sure that Eric gets the information that's posted in the chat and is able to communicate with all of you and send you a list of your supplies and everything that you need. But he has also put information on the website for this venture. Our website is hbcuhomecomingartistreunion.com. And so if you go to the website, hbcuartisthomecoming.com, you'll be able to see information about the sessions, the description of each session, contact information for the artists, and get everything that you need. We're going to continue having wonderful sessions throughout this week. Eric Francis is going to be doing another masterclass on Thursday. We have Brenda Wimberly doing a session on tomorrow evening at 6, talking about music and singing and the art of musical performance. You know, we have Rashonda Spears hosting another session on Thursday as well. Next week on Monday, we have a master class, Kababi Bayak. So we hope that you will join that 3-hour master class with Kababi. And we know that it's going to be exciting, but he's going to talk about the road to becoming a professional artist. We'll also, for the performing arts, have a session with Fred Irby III, who is a jazz musician and trumpetist. He's going to do a session as well on Monday night. So please make sure you continue to look at our HBCU Homecoming Artist or hbcuartisthomecoming.com website. We have a calendar on there that lists the sessions, it lists the artists and the times. We want you to invite everyone to join. Having us stream live on Facebook is something new that we started tonight, but we will still also post the recordings on the Shreveport Regional Arts Council page, as well as the HBCU Artist Homecoming page. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll make sure that we get out the link to the evaluation for tonight to all of you. And we hope that you will complete the evaluation and that you've enjoyed the session tonight. Let's give a round of applause to Eric Francis for hosting a wonderful painting tutorial and for having everyone get through the process from start to finish with the print that was introduced on last Thursday. So this has been a great session tonight. We look forward to having all of you continue to participate in our master class series for the Susla Grambling. I'm Sharon Heron Williams. I'm a professor at Southern University at Shreveport and the project director for HBCUC Squared. And I'm also a member of the project management team for the HBCU Artist Homecoming. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact us on the management team at any time. But again, we look forward to having you all join us at 6 p.m. Wednesday night, Thursday night, and in the nights to come, because you don't want to miss these exciting, engaging master classes from all of these accomplished artists, musicians, and performers. So many thanks. And if you have any other questions, please post them in the chat and we'll be sure to capture them and respond to you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you,
Good
Sharon.
night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Eric.
How many people you had in tonight?
About 6.
Okay.
Is it 6? 7.
7?
7 people.
Okay.
How many did we have last week? I don't even remember.
Man,
I was just,
you had a lot of people last.
I was excited. I was like, yay, master class.
I'm gonna get a brief interview from you.
Okay.
Just actually talking about what you did today.
All right, y'all. That's it. I'm gonna sign out. You have Arnett. Is it Arnett?
Arnetta, yes. Yes.
Arnetta.
Yes.
I'll see you Thursday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.